just as we began at the top of the hour, word came out that the first waiver wire claim had been done, and Jansen Harkins is now going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. What do you think about the opportunity for Harkins there, and the fact that he won't be a part of the Manitoba Moose after being such a, he was their top goal scorer in only half the games last year?
Yeah, look, I think because of Jansen Harkins and where he's been within this organization over the last couple of years, a bubble guy, and then, from a bubble guy to a guy who was, got some meaningful ice time a few years back, and then became a bubble guy, and then ultimately kind of fell out of favor as, in that top 13 role, or particularly that 13th role for him. I think it's just the time has come, whether you want to call it overdue. I think because of that position he had within the organization, you didn't hear a lot about him. I don't think, I think there's certainly some fans out there that like the energy that a Jansen Harkins brings, like what he brought maybe to the third or fourth line, and, in that capacity, a little bit of scoring touch at the NHL level, but certainly an energy guy. I just don't think, that there's been much written about him or talked about him. And if there had been, you'd probably know that, he neither was really happy with one another, right? This is a bit of a breakup, right? This is a guy who, as soon as you get a taste of the NHL, and what Jansen Harkins has 154 games played in this league, you don't want to go back to the AHL. So I think last season was certainly a tough pill to swallow under a new head coach. Everybody showed up to camp almost under a clean slate, trying to, impress the coach. And obviously, Jansen Harkins fell outside of, Rick Bonus's vision for his team and the success of his team. So once that happened, I think he had Jansen Harkins. If he wasn't asking for a trade, he was definitely nudging his agent to talk to this team about getting him out of here, because, at his age, you're creeping up there in your late 20s. There's only so much, time left on the runway. And when you get that opportunity at the NHL level and then you slip back into the AHL, it's tough to get back up there. Dylan Sandberg said it this week, it's hard to get a job in the NHL. It's even tougher to keep one. That's cliche because it's true. And I think, with Jansen Harkins and what he was able to do with the Moose last year, particularly with his offense, I think he led the team with 25 goals and was second on the team with, I believe, just under 70 or whatever it was. And he's a point-a-game player, but I think a lot of the offense that he was earning out there, if you were to talk to the Jets brass, was probably not the way in which they want him to generate offense. So read between the lines, maybe a little bit of cheating for offense at the AHL level rather than, playing within the structure, because, he deserved a chance to come up with the way he was playing at the end of the season. And Dominique Toninato got the nod, right? Like, he earned it. So I think that probably was the, I don't know, the straw that broke the camel's back, understanding that he wasn't going to be a guy that, was going to be in this team's long-term future. And I'm sure he's smiling today, knowing that the Pittsburgh Penguins, want him and are likely to give him an opportunity to crack their roster, one that I don't think, was here in Winnipeg, given all the talent they have up front.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I'll say this about going to Pittsburgh. This is exactly the sort of opportunity I'm sure he was praying to get. You're going to a team that has some superstar players, has some massive contracts, which got even more crowded with Erik Karlsson coming in. So when you got all these guys starting with 8s and 9s and 10s in their salary, you need to have some league minimum dudes that can come in and contribute. That's just the way that the salary cap works on a team that, is so top heavy. So he's going to get a chance. And, when I think back of Harkins' time here in Winnipeg, I think about that season that he had with the Moose, started off in 1920 and was a point-a-game player. We were not talking about him at all in training camp that year as being a possibility for the Winnipeg Jets. And by the end of November, he was there and he played himself into a regular spot on the club. 2021-22, that was his year to really establish himself as an NHL regular. And, he played 77 games. He had 7 goals. He had 13 points. Never really clicked, though. That fourth line. And to your point, when he was playing in the American Hockey League, he was playing, on a top line, on power play. Very different than that role that was going to be for him in the National Hockey League. So
right.
Maybe he gets a different opportunity in Pittsburgh. Maybe the holes in that lineup provide him the chance to get up there with some guys, unlike the chances that he would have had in Winnipeg. But the bottom line is he was well down the depth chart, and that the path to being on the team got a hell of a lot more crowded for any of those guys in that situation. The minute the Jets got 3 forward pieces coming back in the trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois.